The internet can be pretty cool. It's made us more connected in a way. It's given us a lot of information, but for a lot of you, it's ignorance is your new best friend because of it. I'm talking about terms relating to fitness and nutrition that people don't fucking understand. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Ignorance is why you might not make it. Now, I'm going to go over some specific terms. Terms that people constantly fuck up, cause so much confusion, they're used as bait for marketing for people who don't know any better. I will very likely do another episode regarding ignorance with some new terms I find later on. But right now, I just want to focus on a handful. First up, toning. I might maybe just do a whole full episode on just toning by itself, but toning does not exist. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to explain this to my clients, specifically female clients, because they're the biggest victims and targets of this kind of fucking marketing. Toning is not a thing. You can become toned, but you cannot tone. Being toned means that you have visible muscle. That's basically what that means. Obviously, to a certain amount of, leanness and definition and stuff like that. But basically, being toned means you have muscle and your body fat is low enough that you can tell that you have muscle. That's it. You cannot do an exercise to become toned. So all these booty toning workouts, they're full of shit. They're just a way for some woman with a fat ass to get free money, okay? It's not how it works. You cannot tone, but you can become toned. So what you need to do in regards to that is basically get strong, and in that process, you will likely gain some weight. And then what you're going to do when you get to a certain level of strength is you're going to start losing weight while trying like hell to retain all the strength that you have. Then you will look toned once you lower down to a certain body fat percentage. Muscles can only grow or go away. They cannot be toned. Your muscles are your muscles. You can only appear toned by lowering the body fat. So those muscles you work so hard on are actually visible. All right. Tone, not a verb. Toned, it is an adjective. So it's not an action, it's a description. Next term, which creates so much confusion, so much ignorance, is fat. Just from a semantic perspective, I would love if we could just change. Out of the three macronutrients, we got proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. I would love to just change fats to lipids or something else because it has so much of a negative connotation when people hear it. Basically, people are confusing dietary fat with body fat. They're confusing 1/3 of macronutrients that we need to live with the state of being overweight. That's fucked. That's not helpful. So people hear, oh, this food has certain grams of fat or it's high fat or something. They think, oh, so I'm going to get fat. Fucking no. Now, yes, in terms of the three macronutrients, proteins, 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrates, the same. Fats have 9 calories per gram. So yeah, fats are more calorie dense, but you need them. And just because you consume fats does not mean that you're going to become fat. Becoming fat, becoming overweight has everything to do with calories and basically nothing to do with the macronutrients. Yes, there are optimal macronutrient splits to help lose weight in terms of satiety. You want a lot of proteins and some fats there too. Those are the ones that fill you up the most. Carbohydrates give you some good energy. They fill you up the least though. So you gotta make sure that the ratio works for you. But in terms of becoming fat, it's all about the calories. There are people who eat mostly fats and they're good. Well, some of them are. Sometimes their hearts can't handle that. But my point being, you can have a high fat diet and not be fat. That's a source of insane confusion with a lot of people. Fats can help you out in a shit ton of ways. Not only are they very, very satiating, as in you eat foods high in fat and they fill you up pretty decently. They help in hormone production. They give you some energy as well. And they have a lot of good nutrients. So if you're thinking here, oh, fats equals bad. No. Being fat ain't good, but fats themselves, pretty nice. Not gonna lie. I just wish we called them lipids or something, just something else, so that this was clear. Like, can you imagine if protein were called pro-thin or something like that? So people are like, oh, I'm gonna eat a bunch of pro-thin so I can get thin. No, if you eat too much, you're still gonna gain weight because of the fucking calories. Like, it would be that level of confusion. And that's what we're dealing with the whole fats thing. It's very frustrating, especially when people are talking about losing fat, burning fat, and they relate to that with their diet for some reason. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff people are suffering through because they don't understand the terminology. Not cool. Another term people like to throw around without fully understanding it is functional training. Now, a lot of people, they confuse functional training with some kind of workout program like CrossFit or some circuit training shit, right? Like, oh my God, I'm jumping and doing the spin. That's functional training. No. I mean, it can be, but functional training is not, it's not like a workout program, so to speak. It's not even necessarily what the training or working out is, it's what it's for. Functional training is about improving your movements to support real life activity. For example, rowing. You grab a weight, you pull it towards you. That's super functional. If you don't do that, how the hell are you going to open doors? Right? Push-ups. You move your body weight by pushing, right? Super helpful. That's how you get out of bed. Kind of. Squatting. Use a lot of your body to safely go downward. Great. That's how you pick things up. Same for deadlifting. That's functional, right? And everything I just mentioned is pretty basic movements. You don't have to, jump off a wall and do a flip to do functional training or do a spin, clap your hands, whatever. It's just meant to, it's not meant for, building muscle for show or doing cool shit. It's meant to support your daily activities. And I actually had to be corrected on this recently because I'm a person who's like, curls are fucking dumb. Biceps curls. Those are dumb. Just do chin-ups, just do pull-ups. It makes more sense. But then someone brought up to me, hey, I fight and doing biceps curls helps me perfect my arm bar. Like basically keeping someone in their grasp. I'm thinking, well, I'll be damned. That's actually very functional for your purpose. So you know what? That makes sense. So even past me didn't understand this fully. I was thinking, oh, biceps curl. Who gives a shit about that? It's bodybuilding shit that not many people need to do, right? And then someone brought up, hey, I use this to actually fucking fight and and compete and survive or whatever. And that taught me, yeah, okay, so that's his purpose. Everyone has a purpose that they want their body to achieve. So when you train to achieve those functions, that's functional training. And same thing for crunches. I think they're fucking stupid and a waste of time, but that doesn't apply for everyone. For the average person, yeah, crunches are fucking dumb. Just do pile-off presses or just fucking squat, honestly. But again, for example, if you're fighting or wrestling or something, you need to get up off the ground super quickly. Yeah, if you can do a crunch or sit-up pretty well, you can get up off the floor real quick. That's functional. It's helpful. If you like rock climbing, doing a bunch of grip training, that's functional for you. That's helpful. Helps you hold on to things. Hold on to your rocks. Hold on to your jar, whatever. That's functional. It has to serve a purpose outside of the gym. That's essentially what functional training is. When you leave the gym, is this helpful? If so, that's functional training pretty much. So keep that in mind. Last one for today, we're going to talk about clean eating. Some people literally mean that they clean their chicken before they eat it. Some people mean that they only eat vegan. For some people, it means they only eat meat. They only eat whole foods, only eat grass-fed, only eat foods that didn't have anything injected into them. There isn't a clear definition of what clean eating is. All of these can apply, but there's not a strict definition. That's why there's so much confusion on this. That's why it's so silly when people build these tribes around clean eating because there's not even a fucking definition for it. For some, it means eating, whole unprocessed foods. For others, it can mean cutting out food groups entirely or, having your own farm or something like that. So sometimes people, they restrict things unnecessarily. They dive headfirst into shit that they don't really need because they think it's the cleanest way to eat. All that kind of stuff. Me personally, I define clean eating as not eating obvious dog shit, and eating foods that have, basically if there are multiple foods, the version that has the least amount of ingredients, that's the one I tend to opt for. That's me. Other people can think, okay, I'm full blast vegan. Nothing that's ever touched an animal is going near my mouth. That's their version over there. They're all technically clean compared to what the other person thinks is dirty, right? But there's not a definition, so don't get too hung up on it. Just, don't poison yourself. So who falls for all this ignorance, all these terms? Obviously, number one group, beginners. They fall for this because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They don't know what they're reading. They're very susceptible to people. They see a big, strong guy or a very thin person. They say, oh, they said this is this, so I'm going to follow them because I want to be like them. It's not always a bad thing necessarily. Sometimes, it's not always a bad thing to kind of follow in the footsteps of someone who has the life that you want to have, right? But just because they've achieved a certain thing doesn't mean that the way they got there was accurate or correct. And this is doubly the case when we're talking about social media. A bunch of beginners are on social media. They see all this stuff propagated everywhere. Clean eating, functional training, booty toning. What's the other one? Fat. Bad fat, fat bad, you fat. They see all this stuff and they just think, oh, this person has a lot of people who listen to them. They're probably correct. Sometimes that's true. But it doesn't necessarily mean that just because they've achieved something or a lot of people listen to them, that they're right. I mean, Hitler had a lot of people listening to him and he achieved a place in the government too. Was he right? Yeah, I don't think so personally. So, I know going straight for the Hitler comparison is lame, but it works. And a lot of times, this kind of stuff affects people who are desperate. They saw this thing online saying, oh man, you don't want to be fat, so avoid fat. It's like, oh, I don't want to be fat, I'll avoid fat. Or they want to be toned, and this person says, hey, I'm fucking toned, and look at my ass. You want to be like me? And they're like, yes. So they follow. They follow what clean eating is to them in that moment, just based on what the other person showed them. They just go full on into it because they want that result. They really want it. So they're desperate. They're going to listen to anyone who thinks they might know or who looks like they might know what they're talking about. And that's unfortunate for a lot of people. Let me give you some numbers or, maybe it's just some stats in general, maybe no numbers here. So here's something. I think everyone knew this, but the concept of toning is just a marketing term. And it's meant to, entice women for the most part. You can't tone your muscles. You can only grow them or shrink them. I don't think you can shrink them intentionally, actually. I think you just have to neglect them and they shrink. I don't think you can forcefully shrink your muscles, actually. But anyway, point is they grow or they don't. You cannot tone your muscles. You can get your body toned, though. So a lot of people, they try to avoid fats, even though they help with absorbing certain vitamins and improve your nerve function. Again, the hormone production and stuff like that. Some people avoid all these benefits because they think fat bad. Being fat isn't good, but fats are not bad. I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but I think a lot of people avoid fats because of that reason, and it's not great. It's probably a number bigger than I'd like to see. Then the majority of people, they don't understand that functional training is not about lifting heavy shit. It's about making real life easier. That's it. And yeah, if you're stronger in certain ways, real life becomes easier. Again, if you row a lot, you pull a lot, opening doors is easy as fuck. And here's another funny stat. Nearly half of surveyed adults consider themselves clean eaters. That's funny as shit. Because over half of adults are fat as fuck. So that can't possibly be the case. Well, actually it can. You can eat clean, but still eat too much. And that's another issue with the definitions here. The terms, the ignorance of the terms. Clean eating doesn't mean you're losing weight. It doesn't mean you're gaining weight either if you're trying to bulk. It just means whatever the hell you want it to mean, basically. It either means cutting out food groups entirely, eating only organic stuff. I don't know. It just causes stress, and half the people think they're right. When we know statistically, their eating is not ideal. Some people as well, they think sugars are super, super bad because of the fruits. having sugar and they think, oh, sugar bad, that means fruit's bad. That's crazy. I should have mentioned that right up there with the fats thing, the sugars. I may add that next time. That's wild shit. But yeah, a lot of people don't understand these terms and they fall victim to marketing by charlatans who want to sell them shit because they'll fall for it. So here's what I recommend to you to try to avoid this ignorance. Gain knowledge. Okay? If you've heard a term over and over again, but you've had separate people give you separate definitions that don't really go together, they contradict each other a bit, look it up yourself. We got the internet, we got fucking AI. You can find out basically anything. Use Perplexity, do a research thing, look it up, look at the sources. Just, you can argue some sources aren't very good, whatever, right? Point is, get your sources from more than just one or two people if you're confused about something. If you're not confused, carry on, see what happens. If you are confused, look it up. Don't rely on listening to what's popular or buzzworthy or viral or whatever. Look it the fuck up if you're confused. That solves most problems. Secondly, to avoid falling to the pitfalls of ignorance, sometimes it helps to be stupidly simple. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say you're someone who maybe would be confused by, clean eating, functional training, toning, fats mean what? Like, if you just try to not eat shit, exercise your whole body decently in a way that actually is helpful, not just for aesthetics, you're already like 80% of the way there. You don't need to think about all these extra specific variations of things. You're already doing better than like 80, 90% of people. Just keep it simple and you don't have to concern yourself with some of these weird terms that don't have strict definitions or have a lot of misinformation around them. Just keep it simple and you won't necessarily fall to ignorance. Although technically you might be because you won't know about it. That's literally ignorance. But in this case, you won't fall victim to it. You won't fall into someone's trap because of your ignorance. You're just saying, nah, it's fine. I'm just gonna focus on, squatting, not eating shit, and you'll be good. Okay. And again, don't fear fat. Fat is awesome. The foods that are high in fat taste great. Just be careful with the calories, okay? But don't avoid fat. The fats are so good. They're so good for you. So yeah, just all in all, I hate when people say this, but just do your research. Just look into some sources, look things up if you're confused, and you'll be better off. You'll be less confused. People will be less likely to take advantage of you because they can't, because you know better. Or you don't want to hear their shit. Even this podcast, don't take a single fucking word I say for fact. Double check everything. I mean, when I say double check things, take that for fact. But everything else you can question, of course. I'd like for you to write in the comments which one of these terms, either toning, fat, clean eating, or functional training, which ones have made you a bit confused in your lifetime. For myself, toning, fat, functional, I guess all of them. Clean eating, not really. I mean, we all kind of understand what that means. And that's part of the problem. Everyone has their own definition. But, just don't eat shit if you can avoid it. But yeah, I fell victim to most of those. Maybe less so toning because, I wasn't marketed in that way. The people who use toning a lot, they target women a lot. And I'm not a woman, if you cannot tell. So let me know which ones have bamboozled you. All right, I sincerely hope you guys make it. I'll see you next time.